Yeah, it's visible.
Okay, so welcome all. This is our 30th meeting, of PC Open Discussion. And today I thought there are not, I guess there is no questions. So I thought to talk about preprocessor directives in AL because I did use it in one of the pertinent extension last week. And I thought it's useful for everybody to kind of know about it. And then if there is a situation where you might need it, you you know, you should be using this. Okay, so let's go through the normals. There's a link where you register if you are in the meeting and want to be default attendees. Just drop your name and email address in the chat, and then going forward, you don't have to register every week. Otherwise, here are the three different sections. Somebody want to register for next meeting, there's link to register. If you have question, there is a separate link. And if you want to present, if you think you would like to share something, just add on the last link, and then we can discuss when and at what time you'll present. Okay, so now let's go into preprocessor directives that we were talking about. So preprocessor directives are nothing but just a set of code segment, if you want to call it, but they are handled differently. And the compilation of your code is the compiler treats your code in a different way if you are using preprocessor directives, and we'll understand what that mean by. But there are some specific rules of preprocessor directives. One, that they always start with a hash sign. Whatever preprocessor directives you will use in your AL code will always start with the hash sign. They don't end up with a semicolon like our typical nav or AL code does. They are considered to be end as soon as a new line is inserted. So their line end is considered by a new line. Uh, Preprocessor directives have been in other programming languages for a very long time, and Microsoft started using them or introduced them in 2020 wave 2, I guess, where they came into existence. So let's understand then why we need preprocessor directives. So what preprocessor directives can do is they can suppress the warnings. So as we can, while you're coding in AL, you see so many yellow signs on your code, which are normally warnings that are available in your code, which are there to help you. But if there is something that you want to handle later, so with preprocessor directives, you can just suppress those, and we'll understand why you need to suppress those. Then you can have your code executed conditionally. And the way I used it is for code conditionally, which is I didn't want it to change the extension that is deployed on the customer uh, tenant, but I wanted to see some uh, messages or values reflected from the code that I'm running while using the preprocessor directives. So we'll see that. And it also helps you to expand and collapse your code. If you have a big code and you want to kind of break it into different regions and areas, you can do that with these. So the Microsoft divides these preprocessor directives for AL into three groups, which is paragons, region, and conditional directives, and we'll see all of those. So let's understand the first one first. This directive helps you, as you were talking earlier, to kind of suppress the warning, and then AL supports a specific one for implicit with. Those who are working on AL, they understand and they know that the with statement, implicit and explicit widths are being deprecated in future versions. So these directives help you to kind of check where you need it, and also you can compress certain warnings. And the syntax is simple, which is directive name, disable, and restore. So it's a very simple one, and it's very specific in Business Central or AL with only two areas are available. One is warning and one is for implicit with. So let's first try and let's see what this directive can do for us while we code. So let me open my VS Code, and I guess yes, this is an example. So what I've done is nothing. I've just an extension with some copies of the base Microsoft table and pages. So like this is sales header table. I just renumbered it, and then this is sales order page, and this is sales order subpage. Now, if you see, there are 215 problems in the whole code that I copied from Microsoft. And most of them seems to be the warning, which is related to either a deprecated feature that will be removed in future version, or the with the statement, which will be removed in the future version. The problem that happens with this is I don't see errors very clearly. Like right now, I'm seeing it on the top of my window, but there are errors, but they are in middle somewhere. So I'll have to scroll down and up to find out where the error is. Because with errors, I cannot compile this code. As in, I cannot, if I try to build this will fail. The package could not be created. And then I'll have to scroll with all these to find these red ones to identify that, okay, this is the error and I need to fix this. So that's where the first directive is helpful. So like if you're on this page and we know that the warning that is causing me problem is, let's say, where is that sales order page? Here it is. Let me collapse this. The warning that is so much troubling me is AL0604. So what I can do on this page, as I said earlier, that all directives starts with hash. Let me zoom this in. I zoomed it more. Okay. And I can name the select the name of the directive that I want to use. And I guess I repeated the word ERAGMA. And then I can disable the warning that I want. And I just need to give the number. So the number here is AL0604. As soon as I'll save it, this will disable the warning messages related to this page of sales order. So if you see sales order have no errors at this point, the only errors are on the sales header table and sales order subform. So because I define it at the top, until unless I disabled it on the top, until unless I set it to restore at a point, the whole object will be disabled with this disabling this warning. But what I can do is, let's say I just want to, I know that the implicit with is somewhere in my layout area. So I can say, okay, layout where it begins, disable this. And before the actions, go back and restore this. So as soon as I've done that and compiled that, you see that there is one warning for sales order page for implicit with, which is in an action somewhere. So this is at the page level or at object level where you can define when you want to disable a particular warning using this directive. And they don't cause any problems in your compilation of your code. But what if I want to compress all the warnings related to this uh, implicit with? You can always use your app.json and apply or that suppression of that warning throughout your extension. Any object that you have, you can just go here and set it to suppress warnings, and then you just need to give the ID as we gave earlier. As soon as I did this, now I'll only see all the errors and warning other than this. So now if you see, all these are errors, which are the actual problem that I'll have to fix. And then the warnings that I'm seeing here are different than what I suppressed. So if I want multiple suppression, I can do this AL0432. This will also be removed. At the same time, we need to remember that suppression doesn't mean that it is solved. Those warnings, those are shown to you, are shown for a purpose that these will become problem in future releases. So while you're working and you don't want these warnings, you can just suppress them globally using setting them on app.json or on a certain section of your code by defining them in your object or that particular area. Does that make sense? Okay, so the second thing that we saw in this was that there is a implicit with one. Now this works exactly opposite to what we saw a minute ago about the suppressing of warning symbols. It actually helps you to future compile your code. So let's say I'm building this extension and I actually want to see that what will happen if I publish this extension in future. Do I by mistakenly set a implicit with in my code, because either I have suppressed this or I actually want to fail my build if there is an implicit with. That's where this is specific one that came from Microsoft is used, which is, so now let's see here. At this point, all these are errors on the sales order page. Oh, sorry, all these are warnings, which will let you compile your code. But if I think after two versions, I guess when it becomes a error message and I want my extension to be ready for the future, then I need to kind of fail this build till I fix all these uh, implicit with. So the other one that we are talking about now is actually forces you to switch it. And the way we use it is, again, at an object level, you can set implicit with disable. And as soon as I change this, see, all these are now converted to error messages. They are not warnings. Now they are error messages. So I'll have to fix those before I kind of build this app. So this will make my app future ready. That I have fixed all the warnings related to implicit and explicit with, and my app is future ready with all the with related issues. Using this route, you can only set it per object, but if you want to set it globally, there is also a setting on the app.json which can set this globally. And that setting is part of the feature property. There is an additional feature added in 2020 Web 2, which is no implicit with. So if I set it, all implicit with in my pertinent extension will be, or any extension that I'm building will now convert it to an error messages and will be required to be fixed before I can actually build this. So it's, the directive helps you both ways. If you want to compress your warnings temporarily so that you want to fix them later, then you can use the warning one, suppress warning. But if you want to make your code future ready, then you'll use implicit with one, because then it will show you warnings wherever you are using a implicit with. Instead of a warning, it will show you as an error messages. Any questions on this one before we move to our next one on this?
No, Saurabh.
Okay. Next one is very simple. This is tagged as region directive. The region directive is just to make your code more readable. If you have a big function where you are doing different things in one function and you want to be able to collapse within the function certain areas and region, then you can use this directive, which starts with hash region and ends with end region all the time. So like when you see your VS code, let's say the sales error table, you'll see that there are functions. Let's pick one like this one, which is doing so many things. And assuming that this is part of my pertinent extension. So by default, with AL programming, you can collapse a field. The whole code will be collapsed, but you can't collapse certain sections of a field. As in, you can collapse the trigger itself. So the whole code in that trigger or in that big between that begin end will be collapsed. But what if you want to collapse certain sections of your code? So at that point, the region directive comes into picture where you say region and give it a name. Let's say region 1. Until unless you'll say end region, it will be considered as part of this. So I can, at this point, let's say somewhere here, I can come and say end region. And then I can, let's say, start. Let's do it here so that it's easier for me also. And then I can start here region 2, and then close it somewhere, and let's say somewhere here. Okay. So now I'll have the capability with these regions to kind of collapse these regions like this. So this is my region 1 and this is my region 2. So that gives you a way to kind of make your code more readable, but it doesn't help you more or less like the first one was doing. And this directive is just used for readability so that your code or that your custom code that you have written is more readable rather than a huge set of code. The last one is very important, which you may use in your in your projects or in your code, and that is your conditional directive. Now the conditional directive let you conditionally compile your code. So the compiler treats these directive and respect them when compiler finds them. So the whole conditional directive works on a symbol, and this is different from symbol what we saw in our objects. But a symbol in conditional directive always returns a boolean, which is either true or false. You can define your symbol at the beginning of the source file, whatever your object is, and that symbol will be kind of known within that object. At the same time, you can have symbols which are global for an extension, like you might define a symbol for debug, and then anything under that debug symbol will only run when you are trying to solve a problem. And there are only two ways to kind of define and undefine, define a symbol and undefine a symbol. Defines mean setting that symbol to true. That means right now this symbol is yes, and if it is yes, anything that is tagged under that yes will execute. And undefined means setting it to false, and you can have multiple symbols per object or per extension. It's up to you. However complex your code is, you can define as many symbols as you want. The flexibility that this symbol gives you is it lets you to kind of run your if conditions because it's a boolean. The symbol always returns a boolean. So it gives you flexibility to run a if statement, and we'll see that a else clause, or if it is a big one, then else if and end if. So it gives you that flexibility that okay, if the symbol is enabled, then do this rather than doing this. So maybe let's see that before we talk about it more. And we'll use our last week example where we created nodes. Okay. So now this was the code that we have written last time about generating that symbol. And let's assume this is deployed on my customer tenant. And I actually want to test it because customer is saying that, okay, whenever I'm creating a record related to the contact of type person, it's actually not moving to the uh, contact type company. And I want you to debug this. So you can actually, instead of going through the whole debugging cycle, you can actually use the conditional directive and define a conditional directive. So let's go back and see what was that definition. The definition is using the define. Okay, let's go ahead and let's define. Define, and you can name it anything, it's up to you, but it will always be a boolean. It will always return a boolean. Now, because I have use the word define, that means when this code will compile, the value of this boolean, which is in this case sort of debug, will be set to true. And if I do something like this, undefined, then the value undef, sorry, then the value of the BC open discussion boolean is set to false. So the defined sets a variable to true and undefined set that variable to false. Now what I want to do is because while I'm debugging, I just want to see that is it even, I don't want to insert the record link for company. So I can then say, let's go back to our slide where we are seeing that. And I want to use the if clause of that. So I can say here, if this boolean is true, or if this boolean is true, which is false. So if this boolean is true, which is not, then only if BC open discussion is defined, then and only then do this. Otherwise, don't do this. So I can do a end if, sorry, should have done hash end if. That's end if, okay. What will happen if I execute this code right now? That everything in this code will run, but the record link will not get added into the company record because I'm debugging right now, more or less. And if I want to see a message somewhere, which let's say I'm not sure this table number is correct and I'm checking, so I can again use a if, and then I can say, let's say message, and I can check the value of this field. So till the point this value is set here to define, if I run this code right now, I'll see this value, the record ID here. But because this is undefined, the company uh, note will not be added. Everything else will execute, but because if it's within this uh, directive, this will not execute. So if this, then this, and then end if. So let's actually test this out. Where is my launch? Okay, I don't remember the page number, so let's run it as it is. So this time I have this preprocessor directives set into my code, and We have seen both the situations, so let's go into our contact. Okay, so let's pick one where there's nothing on company, nothing. Okay, so in this case, if I add a note, I should get a message as soon as I click OK, and the note should not get copied into the company one. So I got the message 50-50, which is because of the first preprocessor directive that we use about if Saurabh debug. Because that boolean was set to true, this got popped up. And if I click OK, I'll not see that here. And the reason is because my another preprocessor directive was controlling my code execution. Now, but if I flip this, if I make this undef and this to define, in this case, when I republish this, this message will not pop up because this is false in this case. And this will execute, which means my company record ref will get added. Let's republish this. And look for contact. Let's pick the same one where we added, I guess this one, yeah, and there's nothing. Okay, so let's add one more. I didn't get a message, and this note, the second note, should transfer to this also, and it did. So that's where this can help you in actual debugging, where you can define that, okay, this is my symbol, and based on this, I'm not actually trying to run this code. I actually want to see values out of it. Or, different scenarios where you are not actually modifying the code written, but you are conditionally calling that based on a directive that is defined in your object. And you can set it on any object. There's no rules that you can only set it on code unit or tables or table extension. You can set it anywhere, and you can control how your code executes when this mode is enabled or when this mode is enabled. So the whole preprocessor directive also helps you in your code compilation or code, kind of code debugging more or less. Any questions into any of this that we talked about today?
Saurabh, is it possible to change the value of directive? Like you started with true. Can we set this false, or can we change this value, or always it is default?
So if you keep it to define, which means it's true, okay. If you keep it to undefined, that means it's false.
But in the middle, by checking, can we change the value, or just is checking one
No,
value? Constant
no,
value.
you can't. They're just defined at the top. And I forgot to tell you guys one thing, that you can have these this was per object, but you can also set these in your app.json so that that particular symbol is available throughout your extension. So like, I guess there is a property for preprocessor something. Yeah, preprocessor symbol. So I can define a preprocessor symbol, let's say test, and this test symbol then can be set on any object, and you can kind of run through it throughout your extension. You don't have to define in every object where you want to use it. So this is kind of global declaration of all source file where you want to use that symbol. And this is object by object if you have to define that here. Anything else? Anybody on this one?
When you're doing an app JSON level, at the extension level,
Mhm.
uh, do you have to define def or undef in the at object level, or there itself you can define whether it's def or undef?
No, so
Define or undef.
you might define it at the beginning of a process, like, where your process start, you can define it, and that value will be kind of carried forward to every object. So you don't have to define or undefine it in every object per se, because it's a global variable more or less. So once you set it and your code travels from one object to other where you have used the same kind of symbol,
Okay,
it will carry forward that value.
thank you.
Yeah, this is available in extension version 2.0.
It's available only from 2020 Wave 2.
Okay.
Okay. Any questions? I'll keep it open for questions if there are any. I guess I just used it last week. I thought it's interesting to talk about it. Sometimes there are some behind the scene things that we can't, we don't read about it, and you surely end up with a situation where you might want to use this preprocessor directives. Okay, anybody have any questions?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
I have read your blog uh, about data upgrade from 15 to 15.2.
15 to 15.2. Okay.
Data upgrade process, all the
Mm-hmm.
steps you have mentioned.
Right.
Right now, what I'm doing, I am upgrading one of 15.2 to latest one, 15.14, 1.4.
Okay.
So in that case, I have faced this issue, like as you mentioned that doing as a part of upgrade step, we have the old version app also and newer version app also. But in
Right.
my case, when I'm doing that step, I'm having only the older one app also. Like system and base application, I have the both version available,
Right.
but remaining like QuickBook,
Mm-hmm.
AMC, all the other application extension, I'm having
Mm-hmm.
the old one, not the latest one.
Right.
So I don't get that reason why I'm not having that latest extension version for that those all those app.
So, as the Microsoft steps which are there, and I guess I'm kind of following the same steps, are only gives you kind of steps to update the base app and the system, and and the symbols app, because that is kind of core to your business. Rest of the apps you'll have to follow the same exercise to kind of update those. So let me find that Microsoft article for you. um, and that should be somewhere. Oh, sorry, I'm doing this on the other screen. Let me bring it here. Okay, so you're talking about 15, that means 2019 or 2020 wave 2. Yeah, wave 1, I guess. So here is application and data, and here is from 15. Okay. So here are the actual steps. I guess, oh sorry, this is 16. I'll have to go a step back. 2019 wave 2. Okay, and minor update. 2019 wave 2. Okay. So these are the steps which I'm following. Okay, so if you also followed whatever I have written or what Microsoft has written, the way it works is you uninstall all the extension, which is pretty simple. Then you unpublish the existing symbols, which are system, and if there are, it's, yeah, system symbols. Once they are done, then you stop the services, you do a technical conversion of the database, which is simple. We always used to do it in the past. Then you connect it to the new service, publish the new system symbols, which are available with the new cumulative update of that version. Then you recompile publish extension, and you should only, I always feel that you should only repair if it's not a third party extension, which is ISVs, because this is step, if you read here on the top, it says if you plan to updating the application, that means if you have a higher version of that app, then you can skip this step. So like you're talking about other QuickBooks and other apps, because the new product DVD that you downloaded also have the newer version of those apps. In that case, you can just skip this step. You do the sync. Once the sync is done, you reinstall the extension, which are in this order: system, base, and all other extension. So if you have other Microsoft and third-party extension, which means your QuickBook ones, your emailing ones, all the extension that you want to upgrade, you have to kind of include them here at this step. And then it's up to update, which also follows the same step, which is publish, sync, and then start upgrade. And you have to run these 3 steps for all the apps that you are upgrading. And the minimum of them is the system app, base app, and application app. Other than that, if you want to update all your other extensions, you need to kind of run all these 3 steps per app. So if you're in your business central talent, there are 20 apps and you want to update all of them like this, in that case you'll have to run these 3 steps for all the apps that you want updated. Okay, so once you have done that, then you upgrade this, which is again publish, sync, and start nav upgrade. Microsoft only gives you for the bare minimum one, which is the base application and system application, which are crucial to any other extension. But the same steps remain for all your custom apps that you have. Does that make sense? I forgot who was saying. Jignesh, you were saying this?
Yes. Hello.
Yeah.
Uh, Soro, I just send you that a link. Can you open and just I can get the idea from that link as based on link chat window.
Chat window. Okay, let me
Yeah.
open the chat window here. And okay. Okay, here we are. Let me drag it down. Okay.
Yeah. What is my? I think you explain all the thing, but just I'm doing the same step. Like
Mm-hmm.
go to that, scroll down.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Scroll down. Yeah. Uh, Little bit. You see that in that get version, get nav app info. You see that you have the old version app also and newer version app also.
I have the older version app also and the newer version app also. Okay.
In my case, I have the only the older version app. The base and system application I have a newer and older both version.
Okay. Publishing system apps, and publishing Microsoft app, publish space app. I might have missed a step, but these new versions will not come automatically. I might have missed a step somewhere because they don't come automatically. You'll
We
have
need
to
to
kind of,
like publish from
yeah,
the
so
DVD
from the
folder.
product DVD. Yeah.
Yeah,
So this is what I was saying, that these step will remain same, and I guess I would have written in your article about this. Let me find that. Okay. Okay. Upgrade extension. Okay. Upgrading business central. Where is this? That should be latest somewhere. Okay. How do I install? Yeah. How do I install a new version of extension? And this is for all the extension. Either they are Microsoft extension or your extension. These step will remain same as it is for all the extension that you want. So like in this example, you can consider any Microsoft app like this app, which is version 1.0. Okay. If you have to update the app, which comes in your case comes with the product DVD, and in this demo it's 2.0, then you have to, and this is container, so sorry, not container, you want to use the on-prem one. Yeah. So these are the commands that you need to run, which is uninstall the older version of the app, publish the newer version of the app, sync the newer version of the app, and then start nav app data upgrade for the newer version. So this is the step, line number 7, where the app data transfers from the old version of app to the newer version of app. And then at the end, you unpublish the older version of app. So these are the 5 steps that you'll have to run per app. And these are the similar step other than the uninstall, I guess. Microsoft is not doing this here, they're doing it later. But they also tell you to kind of publish, sync, start upgrade, and unpublish in the steps if you read it here also. So the publishing of the new app, and they do uninstall all the app initially. So yeah, they also follow the same steps which I'm talking about. Then they synchronize this, and then once the sync is happened, they do a data upgrade. Once the data upgrade is over, you need to kind of remove the older version of the app. So those are the 5 specific steps that you need to follow whenever it's any app, even if it's Microsoft app. They also follow the same steps.
yeah, okay.
Okay, so
And
yeah.
one question related to like when I'm doing the invoke function that from one version to another version,
Yes.
there is one error. Sometimes one error Microsoft also mentioned in his blog that this type of error is or warning is coming. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
if you go to that link that we previously shown from Microsoft blog, as you
Okay, let me go there. Here it is.
yeah install a version. If you scroll down or scroll up, there is a error message while
Mm,
invoke function.
here.
Yeah, scroll down. There is a note. Why this error is or warning? I didn't get that why it is happening.
This is when you can continue installing update. This message is recorded as warning event log as well. The message indicate that the application database is already compatible with the new platform, which happens when the update does not make any schema changes to the system table. So this means that so go back to the nav old nav days. There, between two cumulative updates, all the tables are not modified, right? There are some specific table which will be modified. What this warning is telling you, or it's kind of an update, this message, what it is telling you, that there is no changes on the system table. Go back to the nav word. That means no modification on any 2 million objects. So if there are no modification between version 15.1 to 15.5, you will see this message. And this is a message, not a warning. Ignace, does that make sense?
So we don't need to run that invoke function if this error app happen.
No, what it is saying is when you run this, you might get this message, but your invoke is done. Invoke
Okay,
is equivalent to opening your database with a higher build of
higher
FinSQL,
version. Yeah.
right? So you know, if you go back into your nav days, you only get that pop-up window that you can't be rolling back, you can't roll back, take a backup, only when there is a huge change into the system tables. When there is a change in the system tables. If the system tables from 14.1 to 14.2 are exactly same, you don't get that message. It just converts it, right?
Yeah.
If there are changes between those conversion, then you get a pop-up message that this you are going to open this database with a higher build of exe, you can't roll back and things like that, and you just say okay. So this message is telling you that there is no changes in the system objects, they are exactly same. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
And
Any,
one last
go ahead.
point, that while we starting a upgrade, there is a second steps like unpublish the package symbol only.
Yeah.
So that command will what system will do in that case, like removing that or symbol or something.
So what happens is, if you see here, when you have an application starting Business Central 14 and higher, there is always a system symbol, right? All these others are app, like base app you can see in your designer. But what actually happens is, and you can go back and think about BC14 because that's the best reference that you'll find about it, is inside the role tailor client, not inside the role tailor, but AL development environment, there is this. These are symbols, the system symbols. Okay. When you do a get nav app info, you don't get them until unless you check that Boolean symbols only. So these are references of certain objects which are available as symbols, and they are part of your product DVD. Whenever you install the product, you start seeing them. So if you open this file, you'll see that all system tables, see this, in the system file you have all system objects, 2 million objects only. Okay. So they are part of your system app. System app is always in every version will be stored in this path if you are talking on prem. So if I go to 150, I'll see a same file there called system, and the system file contain all your system objects in your database. Does that make sense? So then when you, because if you don't unpublish a symbol, they all are named as Microsoft system. They might have a different version, but if you see the name of the app is system. So you can't have two system on it, on a database or on a tenant. So you'll have to remove the symbols first for the older version and then install the symbols for the newer version of the application.
Yes.
Okay. Sounds good. Anything else? Anybody? Okay. So yeah, I guess everybody is a little bit busy, but as we have 5-10 minutes, let's look at this. This is the latest update from Microsoft about what's coming up in 2020 wave 2. Oh, sorry, 2021 wave 1 somewhere, right? This is older. Okay, let me find the latest one. 2020 Business Central. 20. This is 2020 all the time. Wait a minute. Let me go back. Docs. 2021 wave 1. Okay. Release 2, 2020, 2021, release 1. Okay. So here it is. And let's go to our area, which is Business Central. Where is that? Okay. Dynamics 365 Business Central 2021 Wave 2, Wave 1. Sorry. So what's new and planned? So let's see what we are interested in. Improve the reliability of database export operation for larger database with more companies. This is for SaaS that you can download. Delegated administration again for SaaS. Reassign as your ADD. Okay, coming to can you hear me?
Yeah, now
Yes,
you are
yes. Now
audible.
we can hear.
Earlier there was some interruption.
Yes, actually,
So,
I also was checking my Wi-Fi. That is it the issue with my mine one?
no. So that's me. Okay. So I guess
No
where
problem.
where we ended. What's the last word you heard from me? Anybody remembers? Was I talking about this application?
No, I think before application, you
Okay.
did not reach application till that point.
Yeah, so there's nothing much on the Azure one, but in the application, I was saying that the first one is assisted setup, help to move tasks of adjust item cost to the background, which means that customer don't need our help to set up a job queue to run adjust costs in the background. There is a assisted setup. As soon as they come to their inventory setup, they'll get a notification like this. If you turn off adjust cost post costing, you must need to set up a task, schedule a job queue entry, and then they click on some buttons and it automatically creates that job queue in the behind the scene. So nothing major change, but a small feature for customers to automatically do it without the help of partners. This one is interesting. I haven't read more about it, but it's automatic creation of lot and serial number information card. Now, what it says some industries not only need to track lot or serial number, they also need additional information to support Business Central offer lot number. And there's pages where you can add notes, quality, block uses, the numbers. The pages are often extended for specific industries. So what is happening to create an information card? When you post journal or document, go to item tracking code page and turn on toggle for create serial number info on posting, create lot number info on posting, two new booleans on your item tracking card. For even more control, go to item tracking lines page and then use new serial number info card and new lot number info card actions. If you create serial number in bulk, you can enable create serial number information, and information card will be created for each tracking line. I'll have to use it to kind of understand what they're doing. Anybody understand what they're saying about this? Okay, so we'll see what that does once that becomes part of the product. Bank reconciliation improvement. I think now you can cancel your bank recs that you have created and recreate them. So that's just an enhancement on that area. I'm not a big fan of synchronization between two systems at this point. I might have to learn that. Define lot size as various stages of production. So that means now you can set up lot sizes at routing version, planning worksheet, and various production order directly. Okay. So that's just an enhancement on the lot sizes, I guess. Okay. The important one, dimension correction, only for GL entries, nowhere else. When you do a mistake, you can now on your journal ledger entries click on correct dimension and then edit those dimension values and adding new dimension or removing them. Administrator can lock dimension for correction. Specify the correction must respect close accounting period and view a change of log of a given GL entry in order to revert to original values. Okay, so it's completely controllable, as in not everybody can go and start changing values, which makes sense. That's good to know. And let me know the one that you like most. This is interesting. More control over default dimension. I was reading about it yesterday. So this is around the line when you set default dimension to be code mandatory. Now in the code mandatory, you can use something called as allowed dimension value. That means in code mandatory also you can say that, okay, user can only choose 1, 3, and 5. Only these three are allowed rather than the whole list is allowed. So this allowed dimension value will be added, and I'll have to see how they add it to kind of multi-selection. And that way you can control even the code mandatory type of your default dimension setup. So only allowed values are if user is able to choose those. And then payment reconciliation journal improvement. Let's see what's there. The payment reconciliation journal will support application against employee ledger entries, have preview posting enabled, separate number series, and user defined document numbers. Okay, I haven't used much about the employee ones. So better with Office 365. Look up Business Central contact from Teams. Okay, so the Teams is getting more integrated with the product. Enablement of word merge in Business Central. Oh, that's interesting. How they will do that without .NET. You can use the mail merge functionality in Word to use data from Business Central to add personal touch to your bulk communication. When you want to send document to a lot of recipients, for example, to a customer or a contact and a part of a sales campaign, you can use word mail merge. Okay, word mail merge capabilities to personalize each document by pulling data about the recipient from Business Central. That will be interesting to see. That was there in the older versions of NAV. Cloud printing. Okay. Important announcement for us. India will be available starting April 2021. So anybody who is working for Indian customers is a good news for India, and joining them will be Greece, Romania, and Turkey. Power platform. Haven't used much. Modern client. Here is the another important thing. Report API allow passing the layout need to be report execution. So now either from the AL code or even at the request page, I guess, you can choose the layout that you want to print, because now a report can have multiple layout. So the developer have flexibility and also user have flexibility to choose which layout they want to see when they are running the report. So it gives you more control rather than setting that up into your custom report layout selection. If it brings it on the request page, that makes it super simple. And I hope that there is a way to kind of default it on the, there is a way to default it on the AL code, but user can still choose it on the request page. That'll make it more simpler. I don't know how they will name it, but that's interesting. Report run in background. That's cool. So that means, I guess, now users will not have to wait for report to complete. User wouldn't have to wait for the report to complete. They can keep working and take a look on the report while having time. While running a report from the request page or from AL code, the report is now scheduled to run a background task. Oh, that was already there. So why? Okay, first you have to click on that button. Yeah, that feature is already there, where you can schedule the report and then it comes to the report inbox. I hope that they are not doing this change for every report, because then that will be not requested by every user. There should be a way to kind of turn and on and off this feature. Client performance improvement, usability enhancement for Business Central Web Client, and enable cloud printing and assign print. Oh, this is interesting. Now users can change the printer before printing a report, which is not there on the cloud versions, and even on prem, I guess you can just choose your local printers. Development tool for developers. Partners can add keys to the base table and table extension. So whatever we learned till yesterday, which was we cannot add keys into a table extension, that statement is no longer true. Starting April 2021, we'll be able to add indexes into our base Microsoft table if required. Extension validation and upgrade. This was so much needed because this was a major region of failure of upgrades, because the pertinent extension never validated with the new changes. So this is required. This is good to have that. Interface obsolete support. I heard about it. Report extensibility. So now you can do report extension, but the only limitation is that you can only do additive changes. And that's kind of the rule everywhere in the system with extensions, that you can do additive changes. That means you can add more field into your data set. Ability to extend an existing report by making additive changes to a report data set and also to the request page. Report layout will have an extensible model. Will not have an extension. Okay, so you can't change the layout, but you can change the data set. But then using the custom report layout, once the data set is updated using your report extension, you can create a new layout for that report. That makes sense. Saves so much time. Record link instead of name while using lookups. What's that? A common application scenario. Okay, feature detail. When the user select entries and lookup triggers, it will be possible in AL to retrieve the record link of the chosen entry instead of just the name. That's good. then developers can do other things if they get the record link out of it. Other than this is onboarding. They're trying to make simpler to kind of jump in or start with Business Central. And that's more or less for 2021 wave 1. I guess we have passed our time. Anything else, anybody, before we call it a day for today?
Yes, Saurav, from my end, just a query.
Go ahead.
Means from last few sessions, we are saying that that there are no agenda actually. So they are like open discussion.
Right.
So would maybe it may mean there will be different perspective for others, but there should be like some agenda. Maybe like we say random, or what we say like tentative days, but there some agenda should be there, so that other persons get more interested. Means if this is the things that, because open discussions, this was my point of view actually, there should be some
That
agenda.
makes sense.
Means,
Yeah.
so other things can be discussed, and we also discuss those things, but there should be this agenda.
Agreed. And I guess we did that for a while. The reason is that if if there is a request that I normally receive on any of these meetings, and I have pre-prepared it, then I can surely put something on the agenda. So like
Okay.
whatever we discussed today, what just came from what I learned last week.
Okay.
There was nothing planned that I'll talk about preprocessor directive today.
No, that's okay, but
Yeah.
you can, it can be like these are the things, be like some new things, some kind of agenda. Means that
I
is,
am getting your point. Yeah,
yes.
I'm completely getting your point, but
I joined like from automation, and there were a few of the other points were that I joined just because of the agendas. Means
okay.
because
Yeah.
there few more of the persons can be added this, and from that time I'm the regular. Maybe
Okay.
so just it was my
I'll try,
opinion.
because the thing is that we are meeting every week, right? And there are other sessions that are happening around Business Central and Dynamics Nav Space, and they
Yes, yes.
happen, I guess, twice in a sorry, once in 2 weeks or once in 3 weeks, which is
My
okay.
phone also going.
Yeah. So with 2 weeks upfront and having additional speakers, it makes it possible that people can plan and prepare for it,
Yes,
right?
I understand
I
your.
Yeah, I want other people to be presenting here. Anybody who's interested, I'll be open to that. There's no problems in that. But let's see how it goes. As in, it just started with, I guess, two people, me and somebody else was there. We were talking about it.
Okay.
We started it, and maybe someday we switch once in 2 weeks, where I also get some time, or if there are more presenters, that'll also ease off some of my time,
Yes,
where
yes.
I get 2 weeks to kind of prepare for it, and then in that gap somebody else is presenting.
Yes, yes. I can understand your the time lags also. Means I know how you are managing time for the BC Nav community.
Yeah, it's I just get my Saturday morning where I just prepare the slide deck, whatever we saw today. There
Okay,
was nothing kind of pre-planned throughout the week, which I was
okay, okay.
preparing.
Okay. This is the reason for the open discussion.
Right.
Okay.
We can't.
Sorry for that. Now I
I
got.
being alone can't do that. As in, if there are more people who are interested, I'll be happy to have
Okay,
them present. In most of the weeks if they can, and then some weeks I'll surely jump in where I'll have something cool to show you guys, or if there is a question that I would like to kind of devote time to.
okay.
Sounds good, man. Thanks for the
Thank
tip. We'll try to be more organized if possible in future.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you for doing very good for all of us.
Oh, no problem, sir.
Already. Okay.
Okay.
I think it's all done.
Yeah, I guess all done. Thank you. Thank you all. See
Bye-bye.
you next week.
Yeah.
Thank you, Saurav. Bye.
Thanks, man. Bye.
Thank you, Saurabh.
Bye.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.